rocks your world when you, for the first time in your life, are really profoundly mistreated.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Houston Ensemble podcast. We are here with Glenn Basham, Uncle Glenn, as he's known. We're so happy to have him here today. We did a music project with him yesterday with one of the bands that we're in. He's an amazing violinist, a professional violinist, former professor. I'm going to let him get into the details on that. But this is an amazing episode. We're so glad he's here. Glenn, thank you for coming.
It's just great to be with you guys. And this is day 2.
Mm-hmm.
Day 1 was we were meeting at the recording studio. And the few hours that we had together were just, as far as I was concerned, just a blast. And and then I found out that I was coming over here tonight.
Right.
And that's great. I've spent the day hanging out with my niece's children, and it's been terrific because they consider me, like you said, they call me Uncle Glenn, but it's more like Great Uncle Glenn.
Right.
She calls me Uncle Glenn, and they call me Uncle Glenn. But
I was thinking about that last night.
Anyway, that's been the day. I went for a great walk in downtown Houston.
Oh, cool.
Because her daughter goes to the art school downtown.
Right.
And so we had a nice walk with her husband around the campus and around the convention center. We just had a great time. I've just had a wonderful visit in Houston. So thanks. This is sort of the icing on the cake to hang out with you guys.
Thank you. And for everybody, there will be people watching this who don't know you at all. I always like to start with a little background. If you want to give a little background about yourself, tell us some of the things you did, and obviously we'll get deep into it. Okay.
Well, I started playing the violin when I was 7. My father had one under the bed from as early as I can remember. And at 7 years old, I had the chance to start getting lessons. And from there, I discovered that I had a nice aptitude for it. And I enjoyed it very much. And by the time I was 12, I was pretty obsessed. I really started practicing all the time. Everybody was like, stop practicing. Your favorite TV show's on. I just was practicing all the time. And I was a late bloomer. I started late. I took it seriously kind of late. But, I joined the union when I was 16, the local musicians union in Florida, and started making a nice income as a 16-year-old violinist. When I was 19, I went to the North Carolina School of the Arts.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a wonderful school. It's called the University of North Carolina School of the Arts now, but in 1977, it was most importantly the place where I met my future wife. She was a flute player, and we dated during those 3 years that we were there, and then at the end of that, I was very lucky to win an audition with the Detroit Symphony. So I went from North Carolina up to Detroit, and we got married soon after that, and So since that time, I've played with several other orchestras. The Fort Wayne Philharmonic was my first concertmaster job. And then I got fortunate enough to get a job at the University of Miami as a violin professor there. So we moved, my wife and our 2 children moved to Miami, Florida. And then soon after that, I got the job as concertmaster of the Naples, Florida Philharmonic. And for the next 25 years, I had 2 full-time jobs. Commuting through the Everglades, just me and the alligators.
How far away is Naples from Miami?
It was exactly 120 miles from the concert hall in Naples to the campus of the University of Miami. Almost like exactly 120 miles. So I was putting 45, 50,000 miles a year in my car because they were both full-time jobs.
Yeah.
And I'm just going back and forth and back and forth. And it was rather insane on certain times of year where, I like jury's coming up, all my students want extra lessons, and that always coincided with a really busy concert schedule, like right at the springtime or right at the beginning of the season or something. So it was insane, but in a good way, and we survived. I had my mother praying for me so much of the time because she was widowed, and she knew of the dangers of driving that much and not resting enough. So I felt her prayers a lot of the time in my life, and I think I always credit that because I was never in an accident. I never had even a fender bender, and I drove to the moon and back. I mean, literally more than a million miles doing those 2 jobs. Yeah.
Dang, I almost missed you or maybe I missed you by a hair at Miami because I almost went there 4 years ago for my master's degree. Chuck
Bergeron.
Bergeron.
He's a good friend of mine. His wife is in my orchestra. We're very good friends.
I loved Chuck.
Chuck is just an awesome mensch dude, and he is an amazing musician.
Yeah.
And he's, like I said, he's just the kindest guy. They have one boy who they adore, and very sweet family, but he is just terrific. I'm sorry you missed the chance to work with him, but I'm glad you got to meet him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Armin, why don't you open it up since I talked a lot.
We were briefly talking about how the institutions have been changing. So, you know what? I'm not going to name any names, but what I see going on is that there's definitely a holistic, top-down, controlled effort to get a certain ideological framework ingrained in the higher institutions, not the least of which is a lot of political jargon, rhetoric, political curriculum.
That's rather well said.
And I think that you at least have some experience there.
Yes, indeed.
Can you tell us a little bit?
But you're talking to someone who is, as my daughter likes to say, Dad, you're fully retarded. You can really do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
You don't have to cope with these institutional burdens that you carried through.
Right.
So
Me too, honestly.
So anything I say is probably going to be tinged with just a lot of gratitude and joy that I am not under that cloud anymore.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go.
So having said that, I don't think there's anybody that watches television or reads the news on the internet, name your website that you get your news off of, that isn't aware of some real insane things that are trying to be shoved down our throats. Just all kinds of insane stuff. And it's actually reached the point where, and I'm not talking about left or right or anything. I survived as a professor at a very left-wing university for 25 years. I knew how to carry myself and how not to get in trouble with conversations. You know, toe the line, so to speak. But even my friends who are still there, and I left the university 7 years ago. Even my friends that are still there confide with me like, Glenn, the faculty meetings are beyond bizarre and scary and weird.
Tell us.
Well, there are certain members of the faculty, needless to say, it used to be that, we have to hire minorities. Miami is way, way, way over that. They've gotten through that. There's so many minorities from all over the world. Mm-hmm. Great, fabulous, wonderful, talented people. But the last 5 or 6 years or so, I'm told that a lot of the people, it's not just about minority. It's about, as you mentioned, sort of political, ideological orientation that people are being hired, and there's a big, big push.
Yeah, and the really cute irony of it is when they all go, "We're not doing that," but they're vehemently defending all those positions, but they're not doing it, and so that's like a little bit of craziness for me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm glad to. So I'm taking my time to say things that aren't completely unintelligible about this whole subject. But frankly, from my perspective, it's probably important for your audience to know that I'm married now for almost 43 years. I have 6 children. I have 9 grandchildren and counting. At last count, 9 grandchildren.
I like it.
So, and I'm very aware that just hearing that, some people are going to be triggered and like, oh, this guy is the enemy because he's obviously a white male chauvinist, whatever. You can make a nice long list.
Have kids?
Everything, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yeah.
And you're married.
Right.
And you've had a nice marriage.
I have very dear gay friends. I have very dear lesbian friends. I don't judge their lifestyle choice. And the ones that I know and I'm close to, there's no issue. But people that you meet on the street or people that see you with your grandkids and they give you that laser beam look because you represent to them everything evil in the world because you're white, because you're married, or because you have kids or grandkids. It's a real thing. So, and so it doesn't affect me personally. I don't have any. First of all, I am not going to repent of everything because I haven't done anything that calls for that. I don't try to, in my life, I don't try to cause strife. I don't want to get in someone's face and judge them for something. But sometimes you just are in a place where you just feel that. You can feel it and you can sense it. It's a real thing. It's a visceral thing when you walk into a restaurant and someone just starts giving you that vibe. So.
Were you? Oh, I'm sorry. Continue and then I'll ask.
No, that's all. So, yeah. So, I also was teaching at another smaller university after I retired from Miami. I had a fabulous 25 years there. I really had a great time. I have still very good friends. I'm still in touch with them, as I mentioned. But I was teaching part-time at a different university, a local university that's on the west coast of Florida. And that was right during the time where, just coming out of COVID, where there was a very big push on all public institutions about the whole gender thing, which, has been quite pervasive. That's a good word. It's been very pervasive through all of culture. You cannot open your phone. You can't walk anywhere where, the signs. You can't go into a department store without being inundated with things that you can't believe is there, And I think, I don't know about you, but I've noticed some pushback recently from people. I mean, there was that huge thing a few months ago. This was my sense that it was just everywhere, every commercial, every magazine, every website, anywhere you went, it was all, rainbow and trans, everything like that. Okay. I have a very dear friend who has a trans son who is now a daughter. So it's a reality. It's maybe not going away, but it just seemed again like it was going over the top, very pervasive. And now there've been pushback. Of course, the Bud Light one's probably the best known one, where what? No, we're not trying to do anything. But people are. I think at a certain point there's a saturation point in America because most Americans, if you ask them confidentially off the record, they're shaking their head. They're like, no.
Okay.
This doesn't make sense. This is not
Why?
true.
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think it is? Because it doesn't make sense. There isn't any. The people that First of all, let's take one step back. This is mostly happening in America. It's not happening everywhere else in the world. Right. So, what are the implications of that? I'm asking a rhetorical question. You never ask a question that you can't answer.
Well, obviously because we're very free here.
I can't answer that. Well, we were free. I used to think this is a great place to live. It was until COVID. And, you guys know about those issues that I had because I remained and I took some grief for that too. Right. It's ancient history now, but I know people who really suffered from that, losing their jobs, losing their friends, losing their relationships with their relatives, divorcing, just over COVID, whether or not you're vaccinated, whatever.
And just for the record, we can say without getting into any specifics, because you're unvaccinated, that messed up your job.
I would say yes. And it would have messed up my job had I continued to be on the faculty of the University of Miami. Yeah. Even though the governor of Florida made it a law that you were not allowed to discriminate and not allowed to fire someone based on their vaccine.
And same
but
here.
But they did it anyway. They just did it, and they're like, that's what I think about your law. And
well, that happened here too. And
in Texas, really? They
Where?
made a law, and then people were still getting fired?
That's right. And, people won't adhere to it when they see the law from the governor saying you cannot discriminate. and then they just won't adhere to it. Obviously, it affected me, and that's another thing. It's hard to be specific about that on
We
here.
have that in common, man.
I can tell you the specifics
it
off air.
changes it just, rocks your world when you, for the first time in your life, are really profoundly mistreated. And everyone in the room knows it's wrong. But the people that are on the side, the deciders, don't care.
Even with a valid medical reason on behalf of...
I had a valid medical reason.
I also had a valid medical reason.
Didn't matter. That's, can't hear you, blah, blah, blah. Bzz.
So I'll tell you this, though, Uncle Glenn. Okay. This is that having had this experience, Chad having this experience, and I vicariously, them doing that is illegal in every country, including this one.
Well, like I said, a lot of the insanity, in my opinion, that's going on in our country is only happening in this country. So you have to think, why is that? How can that happen? There's got to be some major collusion, because, like I said, you cannot get away from it in the mainstream media. You can't get away from it on the internet. It's just everyone is drenched. And a couple of years ago, the whole Black Lives Matter thing. Yes, Black lives matter. They matter, desperately matter to God and to all of us, but also other lives matter. And you could not, 2 years ago, you could not say all lives matter. You would be lynched if you said that, because people assumed it as you were going against the protests and everything like that.
And then we learned that they were fraudulent in what they were doing.
Oh yeah.
The
Black Lives Matter. What's
leaders
that?
of
People
that
act
movement.
like it didn't even exist. They're like, what Black Lives Matter? What?
And notice you don't really
2 years ago,
see that.
you literally could have been beat up. People were beat up. Policemen were injured, killed for no reason. So I shouldn't say for no reason, but they were released. They were allowed to get away literally with murder because of some convoluted feeling that deserves to be allowed because of the terrible, horrible George Floyd thing. Yes, we all agree that was insanely unfair, horrible, horrific nightmare, but it did not justify what happened after that. And of course, it was politically driven. It was an election year,
And, I was listening to a podcast the other day with Larry Elder.
Oh, yeah, Larry.
Vast information. He was on the Patrick Bet David PBD podcast.
Oh, nice.
He's a really awesome guy. But Larry was talking about this kind of mindset, and he brought up this one really interesting statistic. I might not quote it exactly right, but I'm not going to be way off. There was a poll taken maybe 2 years ago or something like that. That was a poll for people who identify as very liberal. And, okay, you're very liberal in this poll. You're identifying as that. It asks you a question. How many people do you think, how many unarmed black people do you think that the police killed in this given year? And a large percentage said, I believe, over 5,000. It may have been over 10,000, but I'm going to bring it down just in case it's not. Right. But it's still huge.
A huge number.
Another large percentage said over 1,000. Another large percentage said over 500, something like that. A small percentage said over 100 or like under 100, something like that. Do you know the actual number that may have happened 2 years ago?
1 or 2? I mean, it's unbelievably low number.
12.
Okay.
Right. So when you have the majority of people thinking it's thousands of people, that's a huge problem, because obviously the media has implanted this idea that every single cop...
They also implanted the idea that 30 million people died from COVID. That's why you have to get a vaccine. That is so clear, and they did the same kind of surveys on that. 30 million people died. So that was the average. That's what most people thought it was because of the hype on the media. Anyway, sorry to interrupt.
No, I mean it's all related, but it just, when I heard that, I had not heard that before, and I thought, whoa, that is really enlightening in a way. And
to have a black person reporting that drives people crazy.
And they called him in the New York Times or Washington Post, whatever, the blackface of white supremacy. They gave him that name.
A famous dubbing. And I think he's proud of it. He sort of tells it everywhere he goes. So, was he running for governor of California against Newsom? Or, yeah, and there was all kinds of shenanigans in that election.
And he's
All
actually running for president right now. Obviously,
I didn't know that.
he's
Okay.
he knows he's not really going to go anywhere with it too
But
much.
he gets his message out, and
he gets
that's
the message
valid.
out.
That is so valid. Anyway, we don't have to talk about politics. I'm not an expert on politics.
Well, okay, so that's the thing. We're not supposed to talk about politics. Okay, well, let me tell you something. The people. Let me tell you something. Okay, the trillionaires of the world. That's all they talk about.
That's right. That is,
So you don't talk about it
Morning,
because you're
noon,
a
and
little
night.
muskrat. You just sit down and have your little bowl of water and run around your wheel. Okay. So, but more to that point.
the Elon Musks of the world are fond of politics. as a
Yeah,
subject
they're
of
very fun, but
conversation.
we're not supposed to talk about it. Oh, okay. So, okay, how's this question for you? If a country starts to collapse, what does that look like socioeconomically when a country starts to collapse? Does the average American know what that looks like? Would they be able to tell? What does it look like?
It's my feeling, just from what I have read in history, and and what I sense could happen, that when it does happen, it happens very, very fast. Things go bad super fast, and we've all seen those movies where suddenly there's a run on the banks, there's a run on the grocery stores, and for whatever reason, zombie movies are probably the perfect example. But I think that's closer to the truth than most people even want to admit, Walking Dead. Because if you look at what happened in a very civilized, very opulent country like Germany, and the things started going south with the economy started getting wobbly, and there were politicians that decided that it was the Jewish problem, what they called it, the Jewish problem. And they started openly convincing the population through propaganda that that was the problem. And look what happened, So things like that. Well, it happened also in the First World War, World War I, that huge depression when in Weimar they started printing money because they had a terrible economic downturn. And the government, like many governments are doing today, just started printing paper money like it was going out of style to pay their bills and to pay for the war. And we've all heard those stories. At a certain point, you needed a wheelbarrow of money to buy a loaf of bread. Well, guess what? That's happening in Argentina right now as we speak. And it's happened several times before. But you may have, if you check out Tucker Carlson, some people just despise him. I shook his hand one time. He's a nice guy. He's got 4 kids. He's, I think, a really devoted journalist. As you know, he got fired from Fox News. Yay, we got rid of Tucker Carlson. Well, he used to have 3 million views on his podcast, and now that he's on X, formerly known as Twitter, he's getting 100 million views. I mean, he's really on the cutting edge of doing some pretty amazing journalism. He just went to Argentina. Are you guys familiar with him?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so he interviewed the president of Argentina.
Oh, wow, I didn't see that.
Guess what? You need wheelbarrows of money to buy a loaf of bread in Argentina right now. It's absurd. And the president of Argentina, no, I'm sorry. He's not the president of Argentina. He's running for president. Of course, the president of Argentina doesn't want to talk to an American.
conservative guy with the
Yeah,
longer hair.
that's right. He wants to try to go in and turn things around because the government is out of control.
And he's a thug. He's savage. I like the way he talks.
Who?
The runner up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No,
He's like, we got it. There's
So you heard that interview?
Yeah, he's like, you can't compromise with these people.
No.
You have to get rid of them. There's
No.
no compromise.
That's right. So I still haven't washed my hand from that day that I shook hands with Tucker Carlson.
There you go.
I've always been a fan of his, and I was lucky enough to have a chance to shake his hand and talk with him for a few seconds about some issue. I don't even remember. It doesn't matter. I was just enthralled with him, and I have my picture taken with him to prove it. Anyway.
I like the couple points you mentioned where it was like, number one, what does it look like when there's a collapse? Well, there's a scapegoated group. Check. That's true.
Of course.
There's huge inflation because they're printing money because they're trying to pay out debt and they can't do that.
And
that's
print
also true.
and buy military equipment and do
Military
everything.
equipment, that's also true. I would say you would see banks going down, yes. You would see industries shutting down,
Food
yes.
shortages.
You'd see food shortages, yes.
Riots in
You'd
the
see
streets.
riots, yes. You'd see historic low political efficacy, feeling that the government is doing their job. You'd see people talking about civil war. You'd see, all these kinds of things. Oh, yeah, that too. That's crazy.
We got to get to it.
We're going to get
Because it relates to this.
Yeah. Yeah, you just start to see kooky stuff, and I always like to talk about, because I was born right at the edge of the end of the Soviet collapse. So I was born right there, and I got to see like how people were just hanging out, being poor as crap, and like just industries not working. You don't get soap, you don't get nothing. And I don't want to say
This is in Armenia.
Well, this was in Russia,
Or
but by
in
extension,
Georgia?
all the satellite states, Armenia, Georgia, Kazakhstan, all.
We were right on top of all of that too, because my wife is from her family's from Estonia. So when all that happened, Estonia became free. So in the midst of all that anguish and shortages and things like that, we were eyes on with that. We were watching very carefully because Estonia was going through the same kind of things, but they felt like they were suddenly free because, as you know, when that happened, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania became free governments again. So.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's other little crazy similarities that I find, like, because we're just mentioning things that happen in the legislature, government, but there are similar weird things that go on in the underground world. So there's the world that we know of politics and economics and sociology, and then there's the underground, which is kind of a reverse image of that in some sense. So
like a negative of a photograph.
Yeah. And so similar weirdness would be going down. Like, particularly, I found that a lot of cocky criminal behavior, which leaves a lot of trails. A lot of people started to get blackmailed. A lot of people start to get their names on the news because they're doing this and this scandal. And that's because everybody's, ratting each other out because the whole thing's coming down.
Right. And they get careless and cocky and sloppy.
Mm-hmm.
And
Very sloppy.
And a lot of times they don't care. They get caught. Everyone knows they're guilty.
They're proud of
it. They
it.
don't care. Yeah, so. Chad.
I'm bringing this up real quick so that we can see it.
Okay.
Because this relates to the world government stuff that's going on. We mentioned it yesterday in the recording session, but it is accurate. It is real. And I think that people would be surprised to hear about it.
Right.
Zelensky, president of Ukraine, asks Marina Abramovich to be ambassador for Ukraine. We're on MSN News. We're not on Catholics for News. We're not on any of that. We're on MSN. And obviously, Glenn, you sort of know about her, right?
Unglaublich. It's so
It's a Satanist.
insane. Yes.
This is a Satanist woman.
You can see it in her eyes.
If you're into any of this and you know anything about anything that we're talking about, you'd say, this is the worst possible thing you could do. This almost is, to me, a sloppy move in some sort of way.
My dad used to call this is the devil overplaying his hand.
Oh, I like that. We might want to title this podcast that The Devil Overplayed His Hand.
Uncle Glenn.
Yeah,
we don't even put your
you
real
told
name.
me that yesterday in the session, and I was like, "What? Are you joshing me? That's crazy."
Well, give the viewers a background, because maybe they still don't know. They haven't watched enough of our podcast.
Yes, you should. You should.
Why are we saying that?
Yes.
Well,
Why?
let's just show a couple pictures first. Let's turn off the safe search.
I like that one with the goat horns.
Here we go. Here's one.
That's no big deal. What?
So she says, "I'm not a Satanist. I'm an artist." No, she's definitely a Satanist, 100%.
Put in spirit cooking.
Oh,
How
man.
about the picture with the snake all over her body?
No,
We got that.
Is that artwork though? That didn't actually happen. Somebody just did that.
No, that's real. That's real.
Yeah, I
Really?
think that's I think that's real.
By the way,
okay.
one eye symbol.
Snakes probably love her. Oh yeah, we also have the one eye symbolism here. Are you familiar with
Third
this?
eye.
No, the covering of her right eye. Do you see that here with the snake?
Oh, look at that.
This is kind of an occult, Freemason,
symbolism. Oh my gosh.
Illuminati. There's a good video. I wish we had 6 hours with you, because
Well,
there's
what are you doing tomorrow?
there's every star today or in the past has a photo shoot where they're covering one eye, and this is a occult symbol, a secret symbol of the society.
It refers to.
There's another picture of her with her hair covering her left eye.
There you go. It refers to.
Oh, look at the. I mean, this.
And now what is
That's
that
the old
cross?
German cross, right?
That's the German cross, but that's also
The old one, which
but
was
that is based on the Knights of
Columbus.
Malta,
Oh, my Knights of Malta. Yikes.
the cross of the Knights of Malta. But there's so many things. Yeah, spirit cooking. What was spirit cooking?
Oh, that is so disgusting. There it is.
That is a cake. That is a
Yes.
That's a realistic cake that they would cut
No,
and then
it's so-
sacrificially eat in
It is
circles.
so evil.
Hold on, we could
Just
go.
read
And
some.
then,
read
then they
that
say,
one.
"Oh, it's just for fun. It's Halloween, haha."
On one of the murals that she drew in pig's blood, I believe, she wrote, "With a sharp knife, cut deeply into the middle finger of your left hand and eat the pain." And I did a deep dive into what she's talking about there. And that's part of a ritual to kind of sanctify yourself or to bring
Or to
power to yourself.
unsanctify
Oh, here it
yourself.
is. Here's the better
That's
picture.
better.
Yikes.
Oh, there her. She's very.
That's
proud.
actually her in front of that. Oh my gosh.
Or maybe that's.
It looks a little different.
Well,
than
there's a
it could
door.
be
Is that
her.
a door that she's standing in front of? Do you see that little
Yeah.
frame?
That could be her. Just weird lighting.
That is
Or a complete-
so.
Now,
I've never seen.
Oh wait,
any of
sorry,
this.
sorry, Chad. One more. This one. Oh, that's such a bad picture. Oh, get out of this website. Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Hold on.
Open up another tab and look up Abramovich Rothschild painting of Lucifer.
I don't think I want to even look at this. Whatever it is.
It's just a very powerful image. They're standing in front. Two of the world's biggest Satanists standing in front. A painting of. You couldn't bring up a better picture.
Yeah, well,
There
I didn't
he is, you
realize
can
it'd be
see.
so bad. Hold up. We're
Posing in front of a famous painting of Satan.
You can look.
Let me get a better quality one.
Just look at the dimensions.
I just put it on only large.
First that one.
That's a little better. Yeah.
Oh,
Hold
what's that other? Is that from the?
Vigo the Unholy.
Oh, Vigo. Wait, that's from
That's the painting.
Ghostbusters.
That's the paint.
Yeah.
Oh,
Vigo,
really?
No, but. Yeah. Well,
But still, that is
so they're
beyond creepy.
that painting they're in front of is called Satan Summoning His Legions. See, I don't know.
VR. Okay, well,
This is
we're
a
not
weird
going
website.
to take the. That is the painting.
Yeah.
I don't want to talk too much about the undertext because we can't verify all that right now.
Yeah.
But obviously that did happen. Why would they do that?
why would anybody pose in front of such a hideous, evil?
It's just a little
So-
too on the nose.
So
you know?
we've had some interesting people on this podcast because obviously we get into these topics a lot. We've had a priestess of the Satanic Church of Houston, or of the Church of Satan of Houston. We had a guy last week who is a way to describe him as a follower of the left-hand path. He's into left-hand path ideology. His music is called Asmodeus X. Asmodeus is a demon. Everything's about left, dark, path. He will say that both paths meet at the top, so it doesn't really matter. More or less, we disagree.
Just keep telling yourself that.
Right. And so I really want to show you, though, real quick, the spirit cooking cakes, because these are high-level parties that people go
Yes.
to.
I think
You've seen these.
I think I saw a photo of the Clintons at a party like this,
Oh yeah.
which wasn't so much of a shock, but
No,
a
they're
lot
very
of,
intense.
Of course, and like we had a video the other day. I'm sure we could go find that. I'm just trying to be so fast.
And that's a woman whose head is through the table like that. That's kind of done for the cute factor of it.
Right.
Like
it's actually a
we own
living
you.
person with
Yeah,
their
we
head.
own you.
Head on a platter.
Yeah, put your head on the table.
Yeah, here we go.
That is a cake.
Getting ready to cut up the cake.
That's Lady Gaga. She's ready to get a slice.
And we put
Look at the smile on Abramovic's face.
loves
It's so creepy.
It's probably erotic for her.
And so this just doesn't jive with everything going on with Ukraine, everything that's happening, everything we know about her, everything that they're trying to hide, everything that everybody knows about the Illuminati, that kind of stuff, secret societies. That is the devil playing his hand, overplaying his hand.
Yeah.
So I don't know if there are some people who obviously say, oh, this doesn't mean anything. Or Doja Cat doing her satanic music video where she's the devil, saying that she sold her soul. That doesn't mean anything, but it really does.
I mean, if I was a priest and I went up, or I'm known as a religious person, I'm associated with religious themes, and I go up standing next to a painting of Jesus, you'd say, okay, that makes sense. And then you have her, who is a practicing Satanist, the Hollywood elite, so in many circles known as the elite mother of darkness, which I'm not going to get into. There's a lot of serious. They believe it. I'm not saying I believe it. But it's demonology that they're into. Okay.
Right.
So if you're gonna go ahead, you're gonna stand in front of your Lord Lucifer. That's fine. That's fine. But see, back in the day, if you're a politician, you at least had to try to maintain an image that you're a good person and that you're around good people, and it's all very wholesome.
That's all ancient history.
That's all gone.
That's bye-bye.
That's the coolest part about it. Not the coolest, but craziest part about it.
Yes.
And unfortunately,
astonishing, yeah.
Not trying to continue the negative topics, but I just thought this was so interesting. I think we have to do an entire podcast on this. Armin and I were watching a documentary yesterday from 1981 about child sex trafficking, and it's all about Houston and how Houston is the mecca of it.
You mentioned that yesterday. Yeah.
Another interesting thing
didn't
about
know that.
Houston is it's on the same ley lines as the pyramids of Giza, and it's one of the only cities. There might be another city that's also very close to it, but Houston intersects with it, and Houston is also known as a sort of mecca of the occult. And on top of that, they were talking about a place in Houston called Funland, where a lot of young boys would go to be, or a lot of young boys who just were kind of desolate would be picked up or used for sex and stuff like that. That place is right around the corner here. It's called Super Happy Funland. And when we actually played a gig there,
They tacked down that Super Happy in the 80s. I don't know why they did that. Maybe they had a regime change.
and
I don't know.
when you go in this place, firstly on the outside it looks insane. Like if you don't know anything, you're gonna say there's a lot of crazy cool art on the outside. Okay. That's fine. They have a pizza joint. The owner also has a pizza spot called Flaky's Pizza. Anybody who knows anything about child stuff and pizza might think about that. And then when you go into Super Happy Funland, the first thing I noticed, because it's insane on the inside, it's like a disgusting, messy, scary antique shop warehouse vibe. Mm-hmm. But there was a mountain of this like gross Matilda dolls. If you know what that looks like, right? A mountain of them. And it caught my eye.
Hundreds and hundreds of them?
Yeah. Yeah. And it caught my eye when I walked in. I was like, ooh, this is weird.
Yeah, it's like you're in The Shining.
And when they said that yesterday on the documentary, I was like, oh, man, that does not help. And so
Is
I
this
think
a locally broadcast documentary, or is it something online?
you can watch it on YouTube.
Yeah,
You have to search exactly it.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can send it to you. And I know that the owner of Super Happy Funland, that's just my door with the wind. I know he was in jail at some point. He kind of looks like a Rob Zombie, if you're familiar with this guy, Rob Zombie.
Rings a bell.
Look up Super Happy Funland. Let's see how far back they go. Not to put them on blast or anything.
Super Happy
We're gonna
Funland,
have him on the
Houston?
podcast
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah, we'll have him on the podcast and ask them about the fun stuff.
Because I think that's a thing that we like to do
Look
in
at
the
that.
podcast.
Wow.
Oh, see, it doesn't even look like this today. It's all covered in art.
So that's an old photo.
So and this is literally 2 minutes from here.
Good
And that
Lord.
wasn't always their location. I'm telling you right now, they've had at least two.
They call it an art performance music venue. Super
How
Happy
far
Fun-
back does it go? That's what I want to know. Because there's a Super Happy Funland. When I first went there when I was 14 for a metal, it was like a metalhead birthday party. Yeah, that's part of the pile, ain't it?
Yeah, it's part of the pile in there.
When I went there, it was in a nasty house. And I went in there. I still remember to this day. I was 14 years old. I was in the bathroom. And I went in the bathroom, and there was porn all over the bathroom. Just all over. All kinds of, anything you can think of. And a lot of, I would say, like a lot of like dolls, a lot of kiddie stuff. Kind of like mixed in with the imagery.
which
And
is
I just
very
remember
questionable.
And I just out loud, I was just like, man, this is kind of weird. And this is this tall dude. I mean, I was a tiny 14-year-old, but he must have been, 6'4", 6'5", long black hair. He looked like a goth. He looked like he was in Kiss, the band, And he just looked at me and he's like, why? You don't like it? And just, I don't know why, but in my child brain, and even today, the feeling that he gave to me was a little sinister. And so I always thought Super Happy Funland was weird. And we got a pop-up show there with the band Bad Cameo 2 years ago in this new location that we just showed. And still the vibe was really whack.
It's the same vibe.
Yeah.
And it's probably been there for a
It's
little
probably
while
demonic.
now.
I don't know if you guys believe in that, but I
do
believe in
believe
the. I think it's a real thing. Again, those are spiritual forces. They're spiritual entities.
You want to hear a weird story?
Yes.
There's another place very close to here that is a sort of magic spell shop. And we didn't know what it was before going there. And we were playing a Halloween party there. And we were just there to play music, hang out outside. We walked inside to go to the bathroom. But we did see that they have all sorts of interesting, crazy stuff. Voodoo kind of stuff, magic stuff. And when we finished on Halloween night, we were walking out, and there was a ring of people doing some sort of weird ceremony in front of a fire because it was all very dark and everybody's heads were down. There was some voices going, and they didn't pay us any attention. And I walked past them, looked at them, and I was like, oh, this is weird. Got home, started itching my arm a little bit, didn't think much of it. And then the next day, what's interesting is my whole body was covered in clothing, like Under Armour all the way to my wrist, all the way to my hand, I should say. So I really shouldn't have touched anything. I didn't go into any leaves or anything like that. Itched my arm a little bit. Next morning, I woke up with a bubbling rash on my arm that spread throughout my entire body, basically. Not covered, but it was showing up in spots all over my body, and it would not go away. And I went to the doctor and had it checked out, and they were like, we have no idea what it is, blah, 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 blah. My gut instinct, I'm not going to say this is true, but my gut instinct is did I catch something spiritually in a weird way?
Just walking past those people.
Mm-hmm. Just very clearly making eye contact with somebody in there while this very
I don't have a
dark
problem
moment
with
was
believing
happening.
That could happen because these are malevolent forces. Mm-hmm. They're not. It's not. Oh, you get to choose your religion. It's America. We have freedom. Oh, that's what you believe. Well, this is what I believe. These are malevolent forces. They want people. They want to hurt humans. They want to kill humans. It's a real deal. It's a real thing. It's frightening.
I meant to ask this earlier. Take a little bit of a turn here. when did you feel some sort of, and maybe it was always the case, but just for the sake of the question, when did you feel some sort of awakening or wider perspective to everything that goes on in the world relating to everything we're talking about?
Things that we all thought were just conspiracy theories until recently.
Yeah. Why are you like how you are?
Well, as a Christian person, my dad was a minister. I was raised in a very loving, happy home. 5 kids. I was one of 5 kids. So at a certain point in my life, I did give my life to Jesus. I accepted him as my Savior, but then at a certain point in my teen years, that became real to me. That there was actually a person up there who cared about me personally. That there was a personal relationship with Jesus. Have I walked the path, my entire life? No, I've done my best to stay on that, but certainly had my tough times too. But I think what's been happening again in the world, for me, I'd have to say, again, I hate coming back to politics, but when people just start saying nonsensical things about basic truths about life, that gets my attention. As a father and as a grandfather, I'm worried about the future of the country and what's the world going to be like when my kids are growing up and when my grandkids are growing up. So, I think when the pandemic hit, it became obvious within a few months that something was fishy and things weren't lining up and people were being so controlling and everything shut down, and that was weird. But in some ways it was nice because I got to spend a lot of time with my family, and I used to sneak out of Florida. I hope I don't get arrested for this, but Florida was locked down for about a month. He only did it for a short time, and then DeSantis opened it up. But I was driving in the middle of the night, taking little state roads because they were shutting the highways down. But I just went. I wanted to go hang out with my grandkids and my kids up in North Carolina.
Yeah.
So I did that several times because I didn't have to work. I had no job. I had nothing to do. Anyway, a lot of that was the first experience in my entire life where you couldn't even get a hotel room because if you weren't a first responder, they would not rent you a hotel room. I mean, things were really, really strict. And that was all wrapped up in the election, and Trump started pushing for the vaccine. Sounded like a good idea to me. Yeah, we need a vaccine against this vaccine that's killing 30 million. I mean, the virus that's killing 30 million people. That was very frightening. And I'm doing the math. It's like, that's 1 out of every 10 people in this country are going to die. Mm-hmm. If we have 300 million people, 3 million people, that's 10% of the population is going to die. Okay, I'm ready, Lord. If that was my first thought. I was in my early 60s. I was like, okay, well, I have had a good life and I've been blessed, but what about my kids? Again, yeah, and then as things unfolded, I felt that the election was fishy. I was watching the election. Am I a big Trump fan? No. But what happened just seemed crazy to me, fishy to me. We all went to bed thinking Trump had it in the bag, and we wake up the next morning, wow, Biden's the new president. That's weird because he never got out of his basement for 6 months. Mm-hmm. How did that happen? Oh, 85 million views, or how many votes he got. All that was fascinating to me. Man. I was going to go to January 6th. Mm-hmm. Oh. That's how passionate I was about it. I was like, this is wrong. Something happened. We need to verify this. This is wrong. This is crazy. I couldn't find anybody to go with me from Florida up there, so I didn't go. But
you should call us.
I wanted to be. Did you guys go?
No. We had a friend who was there.
I have a lot of friends that were there. It was just me, myself. I just could not get anybody who was free, who wasn't working on that day. Anyway, the point I was going to make is...
So you're a white supremacist.
Yeah, of course. I'm everything that you... I told you that before. I have children and grandchildren. Right. Anyway,
Do we want to look at the June 2021 White House report on domestic terrorism?
Yes, I would enjoy that so much. Thank you for changing the subject.
No, I'll tell you what, because it's actually within the lines of what we were talking about. But this is a real report written by.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, you might not be able to find it.
Like the actual.
Yeah, they may have taken
report.
it back down because they don't want that stuff.
Basically, somewhere in the middle of 2021, the White House released a report that, just like you said,
People like me
people like you are the
are
number
domestic terrorists.
one threat to America.
Yeah,
number
that's
one threat
correct.
to democracy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Something similar here.
Domestic extremism. That's it. There we go.
Yeah,
That's you
that's
right
what it's
there.
talking about.
January 6th.
Well, there were so many people that said, if you voted for Trump, you are a terrorist. You
Right.
hate America.
Right.
And you know what? That got a lot of traction for a lot of people. The whole January 6th committee, it was stunning to me
Yeah.
how much they were. And the guys that they've put in jail for peacefully walking in at the encouragement of the Capitol Police.
At the encouragement. It's
And they're
very
in jail
important.
now? Okay.
And also, I think
Except for the guy Ray Epps, who
Except
was
for that
out
guy.
there instigating, saying, we must charge into the Capitol. For some reason, he's not in jail. What's that about? Anyway.
I think anybody who went, like the person we know, there's no intention of that. They had no idea
None.
that was going to happen. And what bothers me a lot is that they constantly compare it to 9/11,
That's completely...
and there's just no
That's
comparison.
absurd on the face of it. If anybody
Actually,
yeah, the vice
one of
president
the people
was-
who got killed, nobody.
protesters were the ones.
The protesters
Right.
got killed.
Right.
We
Two or
watched
three
it,
girls, yeah.
and yeah, they should. Sure, she shouldn't.
And they talked
have
about that
done
guy,
it.
Brian Sicknick, that was killed by protesters. That was totally not true. He did get hit in the head, but he later just died from, I don't remember what, but he did not die as a result of the injuries he sustained on that day.
Yeah, so I just can't stand when people
It's
repeat
just
that.
lying. They repeat lies all the time.
I-
Tucker Carlson, I hate to bring him up again. He says the only people that get in trouble are the ones that tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone who's lying, no problem. And everyone is lying, except those that tell the truth. If they're putting them in jail, if they're getting arrested, you can pretty much guarantee those are the ones telling the truth. That's the way it is right now. There's so much lying in the media. There's so much lying in politics. There's so much lying in the medical community. Unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And the real heroes are the ones that told the truth. And they're all pushed off of YouTube. They've been banned from all social media. There's some guy named Peter McAuliffe that rings a bell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're a truth warrior, you're banned.
And we even had a friend who's a nurse at Houston Methodist infant specialty care.
Wow.
Right after birth. I forget what it's all called. But
Neonatal.
Something like that,
Yeah.
but like the intensive care, like something is happening.
Yeah.
And she was saying that, and this was maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, kind of when they were pushing out the shot for everybody. She was seeing a lot of infants who were coming out of mothers who had recently had it, having serious problems.
Or the okay.
She was seeing, and she was saying it's super weird. She also said you could be testing positive for and still go into work after a couple of days. And she said, I literally have no idea why any of this is going on, and it's so backwards. And so it was interesting to hear her perspective on it. It's interesting to hear other people's perspective on it, especially when they actually work in the medical field. We actually had on our 6th ever episode of Houston Ensemble deep in COVID, like during like
So
lockdown
you started
era.
it up in 2020 or something?
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah, basically in the lockdown when we just had a bunch of free time and we were living in the same house and we had a room And we had on a guy named Joseph Verone, Dr. Joseph Verone, who was the first guy to basically be everywhere on the news. Houston Chronicle, CNN,
BBC, whatever.
BBC, about his COVID protocol.
Just that he was the COVID hunter.
COVID hunter.
He going every single day without a rest. He's saving people, and he's on day like 1097 or something right now.
So how was he saving people? He was using these
Using
forbidden medications? Or
yes.
The forbidden medications. He had his own protocol. It was like steroids, vitamin D, ivermectin,
Right.
Math Plus. That's what he called it.
That's horse crap medicine.
So
Right.
he was the face of this before they started demonizing that stuff.
Okay.
Immediately before. He came to our house
Wow.
in his sweet orange pimped out Jeep.
Nice.
And we asked him, would you, and he knew
Luc Montagnier.
Luc Montagnier, who basically discovered HIV stuff, huge virologist,
Nobel laureate.
was doing research on COVID/vaccine, was saying.
Lead virologist of the planet said he was created, without a doubt.
Oh, yeah, you're saying COVID.
And now he's banned.
Now he's dead.
Oh, he's dead. Oh,
And
yikes.
so we asked Dr.
These
Verone,
people are not kidding around.
No.
would you be one of the first people to take the shot? And he said, no. Couple weeks later, he's getting the shot on Instagram. And,
We don't want to speak poorly of Dr. Joseph
We're not
Verone,
speaking
but
poorly of
clearly
him.
he's a strategist.
Wow.
It was just interesting to see that in our own home.
You guys were right there in the forefront, man.
Yeah.
So I think the moral of all that is that one message of the podcast is you need to really listen to all the information you're getting and not immediately act on it 100% and say, I heard this on CNN, this is true. Because it's just not. More today than
I
ever.
would say, in the case of CNN, if you heard it on CNN, it's probably not true.
Right.
But that's just my personal opinion. I don't mean it in any other way than that.
They've been corrected a bunch of times. New York Times has been corrected a bunch of times. Fox News has been corrected.
Oh, yeah, everybody.
We're just not fans of giant mainstream legacy media, but you can't go around automatically repeating what the mainstream narrative is that is demonizing people, that's deliberately pinning people against each other, that's creating...
Causing illness and death, too.
Exactly.
I mean, they're implicated. And you called it legacy media. I call it the corporate media. They're in business. They're making money. And they're driven by that. And they're in collusion with whoever you want to say, the big pharma, brought to you by Pfizer. I mean, every mainstream news station, all of them were getting big advertising bucks from all of those companies.
I remember being at home in 2000, and by being at home, I mean visiting my parents in Ohio and watching cable TV on the TV, maybe 2021, early 2021. And all of a sudden a commercial comes on with no title, no anything. And this is very shortly after the shot came out. And it was just a nurse walking out into the room. And she said, if you're experiencing something thrombosis, please call your doctors, blah, 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 blah. And that was it.
Pulmonary thrombosis.
Pulmonary thrombosis. The blood clotting.
Right.
No
There was no
context to it.
There was no company at the end or anything?
No.
It's just,
wait, yes, there was.
oh,
I recorded the video on my phone with Sophie because I was so in shock listening to it. And I was like, okay,
how
this
did
is
that
it right
even-
here.
Yeah.
This is saying that people are experiencing something out of the blue. We're not going to give them any context as to
It
what
hadn't
this
been
is.
politicized yet. They were just literally worried about what was happening.
Right.
They cause the disease, then they treat it.
Yeah, but then that wasn't allowed to be talked about anymore because it's safe and effective, as we all know.
We interviewed people on the street here in Houston. I remember talking to a couple different people. One guy who was around our age We just met him in the parking lot because we were just trying to interview a bunch of random people. He said his grandpa got it, started walking home. It was hot in Houston, had a heart attack and died on the way home.
On the way home from getting the
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it was just the heat. Because the
just the
vaccine
heat,
is
yeah,
safe
yeah.
and effective.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever it was, we know for one thing, for sure, it wasn't the vaccine. I don't know what happened, but it wasn't the vaccine. That's what you hear over and over and over and over again.
He probably tripped and fell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And more importantly, as Joe Rogan says, so I'm really just copying this, but it's so important, is the government never said, let's do some great things for your body. Let's take the vitamins. Like we highly recommend in this time. You got to take your vitamins.
Right.
You got to take your D. You got to take your zinc.
Keep your immune system strong.
Yeah, you got to drink fruit juice. You got to go in the sun. You got to get some exercise. Never did you hear that. You actually heard you're going to get unlimited Krispy Kreme for a year. We're going to watch
If
de
you get the
Blasio.
vaccine, we'll give you hot dogs and hamburgers and fries.
You saw
And
Mayor de Blasio
the mayor
doing
of,
that?
yeah, he's eating French
Terrible.
fries.
That, to me, is one of the most insulting things I've ever seen.
It is so absurd. And even you can see this on his face. He
He's
looks
like making it up as
What's
he's going.
that face? He had a shit-eating grin on
wanted
his
to
face.
laugh.
Are you allowed to say the S word on this show?
Yeah.
He had a shit-eating grin on his face. We all knew that this was a bunch of malarkey.
Yeah, he wanted to laugh. You could tell. It's very easy to know what the good things are to do. The good things are to do is to nurture. Well, I'm going to get very specific. The good things to do are to nurture everything that creates strong communities with people and brings them together. So I would say more family, not less family.
More.
Okay.
Racist.
That's racist. I would say less surgical operations, not more surgical operations. Less giving drugs to people for billions of different reasons. Right?
More good nutrition.
More good
and,
nutrition.
And exercise. And
More exercise.
Yes.
More truth telling. More conversations. Less gaslighting. Very simple. Very simple stuff. And we're actually nurturing all those things right here, right now.
I believe
This
that.
very second.
That's why I feel this fabulous vibe that we have in this room. So, yeah, I like what you said about the fact that I guess Joe Rogan made the observation that the government could care less about actually recommending the citizens to take care of themselves, and it's just all about getting the boosters and doing all that and getting. It's so important, and I'm, as a family man with children and grandchildren, daughters-in-law, sons-in-law, I really am proud to say that those kids, they're all down. No one in our family ever got. And everybody's eating their zinc and their vitamin C, and we've really enjoyed a fairly good amount of good health in the months and years after all this craziness. So,
The other important thing is the art, the music,
yes,
the
caring for spiritual health.
the spiritual
heart,
health.
yes.
I meant to mention this earlier. Armin and I were playing at the Menil, which is an art museum right before this,
Yes.
for a gathering. But
What
during
was the
COVID,
event?
Is investors meeting.
Okay.
something like that. But
We won't
during,
hold that against you.
Right.
during COVID, during the lockdown era, me, Armin, and our other friend who plays saxophone, we would just go to the park out there at the Menil and just set up and play. And we did it almost every day of the week for a while. And we
Just to create a good vibe for people, just to help them
Yeah.
through the day?
yeah,
Make some money.
at first to make some money.
Oh, okay. So it was
And
an actual paying gig.
Busking. No.
Busking.
Oh, busking. Okay. So people don't. Yeah.
Nothing was going on in the city.
And
Right.
then it became more important because a bunch of people started to catch on to it. And we had so many people come up to us and say, wow, we needed this.
And then we
This
got
is
gigs.
amazing.
That is
And they would
great.
come out, they'd get blankets, families would be together, people would bring dogs, blah, 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 bring drinks, and just hang out and let us play.
Did they make you wear a mask while you were playing? Mm-mm. Oh, good. Mm-mm. How refreshing.
And,
I did
everybody was
several gigs
outside.
like that on Facebook, and it was like goodwill things, and we would just play on people's Facebook page or whatever, but you need to wear a mask. There's nobody in the room. You got to wear a mask because we don't want to send a message that you can do anything important without your mask on. It's like, ugh.
Mm-hmm.
That was always miserable. Anyway,
That happened to me as
good
well.
for you. Good for you.
Optics.
Yeah, optics.
But yeah, I mean, the music and the art and anything like that is so important, and people need that in those times.
Yes.
When they're feeling secluded, they're feeling down, they're feeling destitute. And then,
That's just great, guys. That's great.
I think
wish I
that's-
could have been a part of that.
and
This is kind of silly, but I just think about like a song like the song All Star by Smash Mouth. Like, think of the lyrics of a song like that. Hey, now you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Positive,
Yeah.
uplifting. What number one pop song? You can't find a pop song that's uplifting.
Not today.
I'm serious.
Yeah.
I'm not being facetious. Every single pop song is sad or downright decrepit.
Yeah.
And so what is that? Music, everyone knows, is so powerful.
Yes.
So naturally, you would want to use music.
You would think that the powers that be would want to promote positive messages in music too. The people, but they
Why would
don't.
you think that?
Well, just because it's the right thing to do. In the same way you would expect the government, you would expect the government to do that because, we
Right.
need to help our citizens. You would expect the music business to people need to be cheered up. People need some joy in their lives. They need to have some hope.
Sure.
So I agree with that. The one song that comes to mind is that song by it's called Happy.
yeah.
Right, Pharrell
Pharrell.
Williams. Yeah. But that was before COVID, wasn't it? That came out before all this insanity.
Yeah, that was like Despicable Me,
right. Yeah.
which the Minions.
Yes.
Oh.
The
Listen to
Minions.
I was watching a basically cinematic art documentary called Samsara, which is by this very famous cinematographer. I totally am blanking on his
It's okay.
name. But Samsara is basically a Buddhist word for like circle of life. And so they went through they started in the Tibetan monasteries where they're doing the shaving of the colored dust to create the mandalas. And it's so insane, blah, 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 blah. It takes you through all this amazing nature of the world. So cool, so cool. And then boom, it comes to this moment in the movie where it's like a flash and it's a trash mountain and like a trash city.
Oh,
in
like
modern day.
Like Mount Trashmore kind of thing,
Yeah. Like just
where people throw the garbage.
disgust.
Yeah.
And then it's going through all these different images, and eventually it got to this point where it was in this factory in China or something, showing the kind of slave labor vibe mentality, and it focused on this one girl, and she's cutting the chicken on the conveyor belt, and everybody's in there, and she's in a yellow uniform with a little blue bib, and I looked at my friend because we were really zoned in on it, and I was like, "This is the Minions." And somebody else confirmed my thoughts on this, and I was like, "Ooh, this is very weird."
Slave labor in China.
So
Toy Story, right? No, Despicable.
Despicable Me.
Despicable Me, right?
So I mean, that's kind of an
That
aside,
is-
but
Who
No,
owns
it's
Hollywood?
Yeah, China.
You know who does.
China does
We
now.
know numerically who owns them, yes.
Yeah.
I was saying to Armin earlier, I got a FedEx notification, and I was like, "What is this for? Why am I getting this?" And then I clicked on it, and even weirder, it was like Shanghai, China, on the way to my house. And I recently bought a new MacBook, and I was just amazed that actually it really is coming from China right now. Like they're building it in China, sending it straight to my door. And it made me think of all the stuff that goes on in China, especially with labor, especially with the Foxconn, you've heard of
There's
this.
a lot of course. It's all kept out of the news, most of it, I
Right.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't get to hear about it so much, but
Suicides and all kinds of other horrible things. People being incarcerated in the factories and stuff like that.
absolutely.
It's been said by many psychiatrists, but one in particular comes to mind, Jung, who would explain that. I'm just going to speak for men, that for men to become a great man, he would say that you would look into the abyss and then you would also look into the light so that you would know how far the abyss goes and then how strong the light is in comparison. But you wouldn't know unless you looked into the abyss. And then he would also say that you wouldn't ask the devil about what's evil. You would ask God what's evil, because the devil will lie to you and tell you that the evil is good. But God would truly frighten you, because he would show you exactly what it is, and then you would piss your pants. So it's kind of like these things are coming together. But to say that we need to understand the full spectrum of human experience, it's not a service that we turn a blind eye to bad things happening, because then we truly don't know what good we're capable of in comparison. We just kind of think it's like a dull, kind of zombie-like existence. Nothing matters. It's all relativistic. Oh, it's not good. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. And a lot of forces out there want you to think that way. And
Right.
we've all been entrapped in that mentality from time to time, for sure. But for your audience, someone who we didn't even meet until yesterday, but I'm telling your audience, these guys are magnificent musicians. They're really sensitive. They play music for all the right reasons. I'm not sure, but I don't think any of us were getting paid to play for those 3 hours.
Mm-mm.
It's all kind of on spec and, helping my niece and everything, which is just fabulous, and she's certainly deserving. But when you play music just for, as I said, for the right reasons, to create joy and to promote goodness and good community in the world, it's hard to find something better to do with your time and your energy.
Mm.
And I could tell you from my perspective, playing in a worship setting, not necessarily a church, it could be in a house, it could be outside somewhere, but where God is being lifted up for the corporate good, for the benefit of the people listening to the music, that for me is personally the highest, most joyful thing. I wish I was doing it more often at this stage in my life. I have played in Carnegie Hall. I've played concertos with professional orchestras in my classical life. And that's all very well and good and fun, and I was very lucky to do those things. But along the lines that you're saying, we need to remember that whatever gifts God has given us, we need to continue to work on that and find ways to share it, find ways to share what's most important to us. Mm-hmm. As long as it's pure and good. I'm not talking to the axe murderers out there. No.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm talking about those things that you know are inside of you that speak most deeply to you and make you feel the best when you share them. I've been a very, very blessed person as a musician. I've played some really horrible gigs that I wish, concerts that I wish I was not a part of. But I've also had the blessing of doing some really wonderful things. And one of those things was playing with you guys yesterday. So,
And it was
along the signs, it was just really a pleasure. I mean, we didn't really know for sure what we were going to do next, and it didn't matter but all you guys, first of all, you guys came. You were so professional. You came prepared. Everything was so easy and fun. I was very pleased to be with you guys yesterday, and I hope we get to play some more together, and hopefully share some music in a live way.
That'd be sweet.
I've played in clubs. I play in taverns. I play in churches. I play in houses. I don't expect to play that much in the future. I'm still doing some classical, but the thing that gives me the greatest joy, as I mentioned, is playing in a setting where people are promoting love and lifting people up, which I think is a godly thing and something that resonates on any level. It doesn't even matter really what religion you have. Music is something that has been anointed by the Creator to help us get through this crazy existence on this planet.
Wow.
That was a big time. I can't say anything after that.
I love that. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end it. That's
Well, it's a joy to be with you guys. I just wanted to find some chance to thank you for you. And the minute I met you guys, I said, okay, this is going to be really interesting. And sure enough, it unfolded in just the way I had hoped, better than I had hoped, really.
Yeah.
So it's such a joy to be with you and to be here in Houston.
You heard that?
Yep.
We're not that bad, okay?
I never looked at the camera all this time. I just kind of
No, that's good.
All
That's
right.
good. We've had people look at it the entire time,
yeah,
and we're like,
it's
we need to
audition.
talk to you.
Yeah, no. So, but anyway, it was nice to be with all of you. So whatever.
Cool. Well, Houston Ensemble here, Glenn Basham. We appreciate everybody. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and we hope that you get something out of it. It's important to us. And we hope it's important to you. So we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much.